It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, I am wearing my Captain Canuck shirt so that it's obvious to anybody deciding to come here and try to fight with me about Charlie Kirk. Canadian, okay? Shove off. Instead, I want to give people a little hope that, like the title of the video says, we're moving beyond this men as predators narrative when it comes to domestic violence and whatnot. And I'm not here to just sing Kumbaya. I have actual evidence. You guys know I don't do the Kumbaya shit. I actually have some stuff that indicates that the actual experts are moving beyond not only that attitude, which I'm seeing more and more people talk about how it's a problem because, I've seen a lot of articles of late on places like CNN saying, talk to your boys. I prefer listen to your boys. But, assure them that it's okay to find people attractive. Being interested in someone is okay. It's the sexual harassment that's not okay. And then you get that everything's sexual harassment. Yeah, I hear you. This is why I want to show actual evidence of a program that has degendered domestic violence, including high risk, high harm domestic violence. Now, we'll get into what that term means, but this is really exciting stuff. Again, I'm not here to just hug it out and sing Kumbaya. I'm here to give you actual evidence of improvements in the methods that we address this stuff. So if you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or like and subscribe to this channel if you like this content from like a crazy Canadian. Yeah, Captain Canuck, baby. Okay, so what I am going to talk to you about is it's sort of a collection of programs that are all working together. It comes out of the UK, which some people may know has a very, very serious domestic violence problem. And the nice thing about this is, again, the first thing I'm going to talk about, and the screen is very white on this website. It's very, very bright, which is why my screen suddenly got like very bright. The first thing is something called the Drive Project, and all the links to this stuff are in the description box to this video. You can check it out. Making it look pretty on the screen was just, it's one of those websites. It's really, really wide. So yeah, anyway. The Drive Project is a non-gendered intervention program. They say working with those causing harm in their relationships. Notice it does not say men, right? Working with those causing harm in their relationships to prevent abusive behavior and protect victim survivors. Service users have been assessed as posing a high risk, high harm level of domestic abuse to the people that they are intimate or in family relationships with. They also often have multiple needs and are resistant to change. The Drive Project has an intensive case management approach that challenges service users to change and works with partner agencies like the police and social services to disrupt abuse. Don't red flag on the term disrupt. Okay. From 2016 to 2025, the Drive Project has worked with over 6,946 high-risk perpetrators, helping to reduce the risk they pose, to keep 7,755 adult victim survivors and 14,196 children survivors safer. The University of Bristol undertook an independent 3-year evaluation of the Drive Project in its first phase of delivery. That was 2016 to 2019, so pre-COVID. The evaluation concluded that the Drive Project reduces abuse and risk perpetrators pose. Key findings include reduction in abuse, The number of drive service users using each type of DVA, domestic violence behavior, reduced substantially. Physical abuse reduced by 82%. Sexual abuse reduced by 88%. Harassment and stalking behaviors reduced by 75%. And jealous and controlling behaviors reduced by 73%. If you're wondering, this is more granular and like better data than the Duluth model uses. So the Duluth model, for those who don't know, is a gendered approach to domestic violence. It acts like men are always the abuser and women are always the abused. So that's significant. Reduction of risk. For the duration of the intervention, IDVAs reported the risk to the victim reduced either moderately or significantly in 82% of cases. So, okay. Reduction in repeat and serial perpetrator cases heard at MARAC. I'm not sure what MARAC is. MARAC. It's something in the UK. Data showed that Drive helped to reduce high-risk perpetration, including by serial and repeat perpetrators. Drive, repeat, and serial cases appeared less often than the control group. The difference was statistically significant and was sustained for a year after the case was closed. The presence of a control group is excellent. If you look at the Duluth model statistics, they only state, last I checked, the reduction in the number of people who went through the program. There's no control group to determine whether, these guys just want to stay out of prison after being in the system once. Reduction in police involvement. This is a significant number. Even though it seems small, hear me out. Police data shows a 30% reduction in number of criminal DVA incidents for Drive service users in 6 months after the intervention compared to 6 months before. By comparison, there was no change for control group perpetrators in the same period. The reason that 30% reduction in, criminal incidents is those are the people that are the absolute hardest to work with. And so any reduction at all based on a control group is good. 30% in anything regarding to this stuff, that's hallelujah territory. People jump up and go yay when it's 15%. Now, is there a lot more to do? Yeah, there's a lot more to do, but these are very, very promising numbers, right? Right. We like it. And again, this is not just men. This is all people in all different types of relationships who either, commit domestic violence or have to survive domestic violence. So it's lesbian couples, it's gay couples, it's, women who abuse men who abuse women. It's everything. So this is really good. So this is just one, the Drive program, of a bunch of them. They have a program specifically for adult victims, a medium risk abuse program. Now, what these terms mean is they rank low, medium, high on the risk of abuse, meaning the likelihood of it, and then low, medium, high regarding the amount of violence committed. So that's why at the high risk, high harm designation in the Drive program, that's what that means. That, somebody may be low risk of doing it again, but when they did do it, it was like really violent, versus someone might be very high risk of being abusive, but there's a low amount of violence. It's still abuse, right? So this is very important metrics. The way they measure, the way they track abuse is good too. And there's a program for children and young people who have witnessed or experienced domestic abuse in the family home. That's very important because we know that one of the risk factors for being an abuser is having been abused. People who have experienced violence are more likely to become violent. Now, I say this incredibly hesitantly because people like to take a risk factor as prophecy, and it's not. I was beaten as a kid by my father, okay? Just enough to make his threat stick, but he did. He hit me, he threw me around, things like that. He preferred to deprive me of sleep and engage in shame and social isolation tactics. If I did something he didn't like, he'd like go after a friend's parents or something like that. He was somebody who probably really could have used this program. And, you know, there's an example of a guy who would probably be assessed as medium risk. You know, he didn't escalate to violence all the time, but he was capable of it. That would mean, if, you know, a risk factor was prophecy, that I'm guaranteed going to be abusive in my own, you know, close relationships. I'm not. I've never, you know, I got into a fight with an ex-boyfriend because he cheated on me on prom night with my best friend in my sister's bed, and my mom caught him. I was 16. So that was the last time. So full disclosure, right? Was that right? No, I'm just stating for the record because Stalker Chan loves to hint at that. And the reason I can vouch for these programs is CPTSD, right? I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the strategies these programs use are trauma therapy things. And I'm going to share a workbook because this is stuff that anybody can do. It helps everybody if you'd like to feel more balanced and more in control of your reactions, not quite as at the mercy of strong feelings. If you want to feel less victimized, these tactics help, because one of the things these programs recognize is that abusers don't feel powerful. And that's the problem with the Duluth model language, the power and control idea. Trying to convince someone that they have this like phenomenal power over someone when they don't see it, they think they're being forced to do everything they do. It's a non-starter. And that's why I'm suspicious that a lot of the Duluth model data is just like, look, I'll do anything to not go back to prison again. And that is true of a lot of people. Prison's scary. Even being in jail overnight is scary. It can curb criminal behavior, but it doesn't necessarily stop. In fact, in my experience, it doesn't stop any of the sub-criminal behavior. People just don't want to go to jail. So the bar lowers, okay, yay, less violence, that's good. But the emotional, the psychological abuse, the stalking, and the attitudes that drive it remain. Whereas this program gets directly to the mindset that gives abusers the permission structure to abuse. And this is why I really like it. And the workbook in the description box is there something called the Engage program. Now, the Engage program, yes, I switched screens. I switched back. The Engage program is for couples where domestic violence was present who want to stay together. Indeed, yes. And so, again, this can be used for anybody. I was amazed at how much this mirrors the trauma therapy, as, you know, it was part of a dialectical behavior strategy approach, but the specific elements, they do accept, acknowledge, and apply in the workbook. And it's called core engagement activities. And they give 4 strategies to support self-management of behavior. And it says very clearly right at the top, they do not mean you will never argue or feel overwhelmed by anger and other emotions. They are there to stop things escalating to abuse or violence towards someone you love and care about. We have all said or done things we regret to people we care about. These techniques are there to try and slow down or stop things before we reach that point. And the thing about this is that some of you guys, it's Manly Monday, so I speak to you guys, may have been in a relationship where a partner baits you and pushes your buttons. And the goal here, recognizing that, you know, we talk a lot about reciprocal abuse, but the people that like to go, reciprocal abuse, tend to do it to try to excuse abusive behaviors in women. This approach doesn't. The idea that everybody involved in the relationship follows these rules, right? It's very effective. It has worked very well for me. You guys see the shit I get. And so here we are. Hope, right? This is something everyone can do. Download this workbook, read it, take out the abuse language. But if you have trauma, if you get overwhelmed, if you tend to have meltdowns, okay, this is very, very effective practice. I promise you. So the first part is usually the part that people have the hardest part with. It's accepting. And the big thing you have to accept is accepting that you are personally responsible for your emotions and behavior. This means everyone in the relationship. Everyone. The big thing is, and people have followed my content for a while know this, and this drives people crazy at first. It drove me crazy at first because it hits a guilt and shame button. It's true though. Hear me out. Other people do not make us feel things or make us do things. Like I said, you probably heard that from me. They might have influence over us, but ultimately you need to embrace that you are responsible for managing your own emotions and behavior. So guys, your girlfriend, you didn't make her use emasculating language to talk to you. You didn't make her do that thing that you felt was over the line. And she's like, but you made me, right? Similarly, no one makes you name call. No one makes you lash out. Nobody. Those are choices. You can feel very strong things in response to something somebody have done, like the thing says, they have influence over you. Or as I say, they may be the proximate appreciation. It may have influence is less complicated language. It's just the way I think. Because, like, to me, the difference between they made me and they inspired it or had influence over what I did is that there's a difference in what you do when you are actually being abused. You know, if I didn't say certain things, my father would not stop keeping me up till 4 o'clock in the morning when I had to go to school the next day and then insisting I made him do it. Right? I didn't make him do that. And that's the thing. Not only does no other person make us do things, we don't make the other person do things. But then there's the guilt of, well, I did things to appease past abusers that violated my moral compass. Does that mean I'm to blame? That's the acceptance part. You can acknowledge something happened, Recognize that you felt like you didn't have a choice at the time. And, if somebody had some sort of, um, control over you financially, physically, whatever, your choices were very limited. All the choices were bad. So no matter what you did, something would have felt bad. You did your best. The hopeful part is that you're not being abused anymore. You're not in that situation anymore. Nobody's making you. And that's the powerful part. Because when you have trauma, things can set you off. That's what a trigger is. And suddenly you're not present. You feel like you're back in the bad old days. So really being clear, other people don't make me. I'm responsible for what I say. I'm responsible for what I do. Do I, sometimes stand by screaming into a pillow or giving it a few whacks? Yeah, because it's a pillow. I didn't hurt a person. But yeah, I chose that coping strategy. Nobody made me, right? See how it works, And that's basically what it says. If we put other people in charge of our decisions and behavior, then we are not really in control of our lives. And that's the thing about the Duluth model, the power and control wheel. These guys are trying to convince are in control, have power. Don't feel that way. Because a lot of them have trauma themselves. And trauma robs you of that feeling of control, Now, I don't agree with the worksheet that it says if you are in charge of your emotions, you can master them instead of letting them master you. I prefer to say, you can't control your emotions. You can't control what you do with them. You can learn better habits so that you're not just functioning on a pure distress tolerance strategy. Because the idea of mastering emotions gives people the sense that, I can just take an unlimited amount of hardship then, and I should be able to take it. That's being a man. No, it's not. No one can do that. If that is your standard, it is impossible. You are setting yourself up for failure. Nobody can do it. The only thing you control is your behavior and the way you talk to yourself. That's it. The feelings it inspires, they're going to happen. They happen faster than thought. You don't have to act on them. That's the distinction I'd make from that. But the overall point that you are in charge of yourself as an adult. Kids, no, this is not for children. This is for couples, right? The greater point stands. As an adult in, personal relationship, you're in charge of you. And if you don't feel like you are, that's something to really sit with and really interrogate. And one of the things that this workbook says is that if denial kicks in at any point of this, you have to stop and work on the denial. So that is in the workbook. It's on the next page. The next point is acknowledge your past behavior that has been abusive or violent. And, I'll add victimized to this because I know a lot of guys, they feel like they were, insufficiently manly in the past. It's not true. And some people do better to go, no, it was okay. Other people find it better to go, okay, maybe I was, but I forgive myself, right? If that's so, if you do feel like your past behavior didn't live up to your standards, good, own that. That's right. Everybody makes mistakes. You get to determine which mistakes those were. But again, being in denial about, I didn't do anything wrong, they made me. We're back to denial. Denial has no place in this strategy. It's very important. And you think it's going to be awful, but it's not. The amount of self-control that, you guys have seen me tank pretty hard. on this channel over the years that way. But the self-control that this strategy gives you, and the people who say you're a lot more mellow than you were when you started, well, yeah, because I started doing this stuff. But when you go, yeah, there were reasons I said and did what I said and did, but I still did it. I still said it. That was me. It's extremely powerful. Excuses don't help. If you're saying, okay, I did this because of this reason, the value of the reason is to go, okay, since that's the reason, how do we not do it next time? But I'm getting ahead of myself on that one. It says here the language they use is accept responsibility makes you a better person, not a weak one. Weak people try to evade responsibility and make excuses for their bad behavior. Strong people own it and seek to make it right. That's true. But, you know, for people with anxiety or people who are sort of more on the doormat side of the spectrum, who blame themselves for everything, it's I have to adapt this strategy to kind of like accepting responsibility means only accepting responsibility for what you did, not what the other person did. It goes both ways. Again, if you're stepping into, well, I made them do that to me. No, you didn't. So only accept responsibility for things you did, not things that you think you inspired. Okay? If you see where you went wrong, that's one thing. But if you're sitting there going, no, I have absolutely no idea how a person got a completely different message than what I intended from what I said, that, you know, it's on a recording. I went back and listened to the recording. I didn't say what they claim I did. No, you don't have to take responsibility for that. Okay? This takes some work and this takes some finessing. But the really important thing, and this is reiterating something I already said, but I'll say it in their language. Seek pathways to repair. Don't just promise not to do it again. You know, if you misstep, shout, swear, smash something in anger, stop yourself, remove yourself, and apologize when you go back. Swearing is not always bad. Everybody has the right to put their own boundaries on relationships. But keep in mind that if the person you want to maintain the relationship with has a bad reaction to swearing, strike that. If swearing frightens them, it has nothing to do with the reaction. It's the feeling it inspires. Frightened people don't think clearly. So if you want to avoid escalation, if somebody has an issue with swearing, try to watch that. If you're so out of control in a moment that you can't choose your words before you say them, that is time to take a pause. Take a break. Use your self-compassion and get yourself down to the point that you can think before speaking. And that takes some practice, but it's really, really useful. But that thing about seek pathways to repair, don't just promise to do it again. That's what I was saying, that your reasons matter for you, even if the other person doesn't care about them. The reasons are where you find the guide to prevent it from happening again. You know, I realized I was being, and the cyber stalkers hate it when I say this, but I was being too understanding of bad behavior. I was perspective taking too much and letting people get away with too much. And so by the time the explosion happened, there was too much damage that they could do to me. And people believed them when they started making things up because, well, they were my close friend. Why would they lie? And so, you know, I screen people better now. I am more careful about what I tell people. You have to trust somebody sometime. But if I see somebody who, you know, I consider a friend behaving in a way that I don't agree with, now I speak up a lot sooner to try to stop a repeat of Fucktober from last year. It's almost the 1-year anniversary of Fucktober. I got to figure something out to celebrate. And that's a form of application. Okay. Turning one of the shittiest months I've had in a really long time into something of a celebration. That is something of a skill, right? To own my circumstances and own, past stuff. And that's the third step. Apply. Remember I said accept, acknowledge, apply. It's real easy to see where other people are going wrong. It's harder to look at ourselves and see where we're going wrong. And I don't necessarily like the wording they have here. I get what they're saying, right? The idea, act like a person, think about what a person you trust and admire would think about how you're handling this. And just because you admire somebody doesn't mean they're right about everything. That was something I had to learn the hard way. Because I was accepting too much criticism and it was bogging me down, making unproductive and making me prone to meltdowns. And they meant well, right? They wanted me to be my best, but they weren't. They were not helping me be my best self. But, someone you trust to handle these things, or someone who you are impressed by the way they handle it, what would they think about this? Or just basically, does this feel wrong? Do you not like the consequences you've gotten for behaving this way? I mean, it may not be a moral failing. It could just be a tactical error, but, are you happy with the way things have gone? If not, well, change something. And don't just go around in circles, be methodical about it, right? And that's a video for a whole other time. But this is kind of a rah-rah. The midpoint is absolutely true. It says, believe that you can make things better one day at a time, one decisions at a time. Good relationships take effort. Don't give up. And the believe that you can make things better. Well, it says make. I can't make anybody right. You can make yourself do things and that's it, right? But the idea of good people and bad people that we've gotten so obsessed with. Good people make continuing good choices. Bad people keep making the same mistakes. And bad people are basically more invested in their own pity and their own sense of victimization, as opposed to going, okay, what can I do better? What have I learned from this? How can I improve going forward? And that really is the difference between being your best self and your worst self, or less than your best self, right? That's the difference between having good relationships, especially good relationship with ex-partners, and having ones plagued by animosity and resentment and a lot of fighting in front of the kid and in fighting with the kid, right? You can't change the past. Today is a fresh set of decisions. Today is a fresh set of opportunities. That I prefer to believe you can make things better, right? You can't unilaterally save a relationship. Both people have to want to do it. And there does come a time where you have to go, nope, I can't do this anymore. And I mean, of course you can. You can go one more day. Saying, I don't want to do this anymore is also valid. Again, this is a workbook for people who want to stay together. But that general process is very useful for overcoming traumatic past. That's what I found worked. And it says, you should stop if you're struggling to accept responsibility. If you aren't prepared to apply this stuff, and you feel like doing this, the thinking about it is escalating your behavior, or, levels of risk to yourself or others. And if there's any, that's an indication that there's unresolved trauma. And that's why, I tell everybody I work with, like, I'm going to give you something to do, but if it feels really bad, stop. I'll give you something else. It's not supposed to be that. It's hard at first. It's painful, but it shouldn't feel that awful, right? It should feel uncomfortable. It should feel like ripping the Band-Aid off uncomfortable, not like, oh my God, I'm dying, uncomfortable. I can't breathe. I feel so bad about this, because that's an indication of that guilt, blame, and shame. And that's sort of the part of trauma recovery that is very, very difficult. But there you go, an approach that is degendered to domestic violence intervention. And there's core engagement activities to help with that. The workbook is in the description box if you want to check it out. There's a bunch of strategies to help you get started on this stuff. And this is what I do, right? So if you want to sign up for a session based on this, you want to kind of help work through, please do. But no pressure, obviously. But I found that this really worked for me. And I do find that nobody makes anybody do anything. And it's like, well, somebody has a gun to your head. Right. The point is, they don't have a gun to your head. Psychological manipulation is not that. And the difficult process of realizing you were duped, that you were manipulated. And it's amazing how many things people do that are really manipulative and they don't realize it because they're just copying something that worked on them. It takes time. It is a process. But where it gets you is when someone is pushing your buttons. You can go, yep, I feel bad because they said that, that inspired bad feelings. I don't have to explode. I don't have to respond in kind. I don't have to do anything, because leaping to defend myself, punching up, fighting back, that's where I always get into trouble. Let's just sit and see, because what else are they going to do? Call me another nasty name? Tell another lie? Right to another event I'm involved in, like the people cyber stalking me do? Yeah, every goddamn time. I need to start telling people in advance, but I just keep hoping this is the one time that they don't do it. And see, I got to change that, right? And I realized, see, here we go, reasons. I'm afraid people are going to think I'm crazy if it doesn't happen. But hey, maybe if just doing that is going to make the cyber stalking decline, because they watch these videos, because cyber stalking, hey, I'd rather look crazy than have to deal with another one of these what is going on conversations. Because people get scared. Not of me, of the cyber stalker. But it's still, I'd like it to stop. Thanks. But the people doing it, this is literally what they say. As long as I continue, they will keep doing what they're doing. Their whole theory of their Delulu case is that I am making them behave this way. And I'm not. And, some of the mistakes I made with them is I did snap. They did push too many buttons and I gave back. Not terribly badly. I stand by everything I said. If I got a do-over, would I say most of it? No, because stalkers. But was it that bad? No, I didn't do anything wrong, right? People get upset. It's one thing to go, I'm upset, I need a break. It's another thing to call people every name in the damn book, to start making things up just because you feel bad. I didn't do that. I swore a couple times. And it's like, okay, watch that. It's not going to be perfect, but watch that going forward. See how it's like I'm not beating myself up. I'm not blaming myself for what happened, but I am going, all right, we can make a couple tweaks so at least some personal development came out of this lunacy. But am I literally making them do this stuff? Am I literally making them invest this much time and this much energy and this many stains on their soul? No, I'm not. Nobody makes me do things. Nobody makes them do things. So it's their responsibility to get power and control over their own lives. It's my responsibility to get power and control over my life. And that's really the only place that power and control should come in to these discussions. Because the problem with the Duluth model is it's all, you did this, you did this, you did this. And it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of relationships where both people are not good for each other. One person just was not good for the other person in a very, very violent way, right? But sometimes you have to recognize it's better you're not together. It's better you're not friends. It's better you're not a couple. Other times there's something to salvage. And again, it takes both parties to salvage it. And not, I'm going to keep saying these things that clearly are hurting you, clearly you don't want me to do. I'm going to keep doing it until you take... No. You stop, because that's what you're responsible for. And then if the other person doesn't step up, that is on them. That is where the inner peace comes from. It doesn't matter what other people do. As long as you know, yep, you had the choice there to make the mistake. Like, no, I'm not going to stop until you stop. When you make a different choice there, it feels good. It feels really, really good. It feels strong. Because then no matter what the other person does, no matter what a monster that other person makes you into, you know it's not true. Because you know how many things you didn't say and how many instances of self-control you did. When you know you did the work, the other people's words hurt a lot less. I promise you. So see, hope that this is not going to be a future of men bad, that we're actually moving into a phase that is both more effective and more equal, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter for the purposes of stopping it. It doesn't matter whether men abuse women more or women abuse men more, in what ways. What matters is that the abusers stop abusing because they get more of a sense of control over their life, and the victims stop being victimized so they get more of a sense of control over their lives. Right? Right.